Hello. So this is part of my attempt to help maintain my sanity. My situation is fairly straightforward. I've had a brain injury, a quite severe brain injury, and I think it was possibly 4 years ago. So I'm finding ways now to try and survive because I've just, if you like, become conscious very recently. I think the 4 years since I was injured has been very much in hospital, incommunicado, just unable to function properly. So I am starting to make a recovery, if you can call it much of a recovery. I'm starting to do that now. So I am looking at ways of occupying my time and trying to contribute usefully to the world again. Um, I don't want to be just a patient, just a person who is disabled and needs to have support and not contributing otherwise. I still have energy. The consequences of my brain injury have been mainly two things. One is the physical side of it, which means I'm mostly disabled. I can still walk with the aid of a stick, but moving is generally a struggle. Um, I used to be a taekwondo instructor, and so it's a great loss to not be able to do that anymore. The second most significant impact of my injury has been my memory, and I essentially have no memory to speak of. Virtually all of my memory has been removed. I have vague images of things in the past and an understanding of some things that have happened, but the details are all missing. So I know my friends, for example, and their names, but I don't know details about them, like where they live or what their phone numbers are, things like that. So I am trying to find a way forward because life has become insane, basically, and I don't have a choice but to try and find a way forward. So I do want to try this YouTube work to see if it can be of benefit in any way. There must be other people out there that have experienced brain injuries and are suffering the consequences. So just sharing with people would be fantastic as well. And putting my energy into something is something that I want to do. Um, I don't know if I can contribute usefully, but I certainly intend to try. Um, the first thing I want to cover is brain injury itself and the consequences of it. In my case, it's had physical problems and memory problems. I will leave the physical problems aside for now. I basically use a walking stick to walk, but before I was in a wheelchair because of the injury. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is my memory loss. So I've lost virtually all of my memory. I'm surprised I'm able to talk. Actually, I don't understand why that's the case. I have very vague memories of the jobs I used to do and the places I've worked. I don't know where I live, for example, but I do have addresses in my head of places that I've lived. But I don't actually know which address I live at, so I don't understand the situation. I know I was married, but I believe I'm divorced now. I simply don't know the status beyond that. So something happened that led to a divorce. I know that much, I think. I'm not in touch with my ex-wife, so I don't know the situation. I also have two children, and the only thing I know about them, absolutely the only thing I know about them, are their names. I have two children and I know their names, and that's it. Everything else is just gone. So I'm desperately hopeful that that I can rebuild some kind of relationship with them in due course. I don't know how that will work, seeing as my wife hasn't been in touch with me, so I haven't seen the children for, I think, 4 years or so. Now, I think I had my injury in 2015, so I think it's been 4 years since I saw the children, maybe 5 almost. So I am struggling to find the way forward and to understand what life is with a non-functioning memory. So not only do I not remember things past, but I'm not able to form new memories as well. So I am very much living in the moment. And I'm thinking that I can't be the only one that's having to live like this. It must be a significant problem, I'd imagine, where other people are living without memory. And it is really weird to live like this. I'm living in supported accommodation at the moment. I think it's in West London, but I'm not certain. But the support I'm getting is essential and fantastic. So food is good for me and provided. My accommodation is provided. I do some exercises on occasion, not as much as I would like, but I think that will improve soon. I have internet access. I have a computer. I haven't found a way to use that resource properly, but I'm very grateful to have it. And I'm thinking that I'm so lucky to be living in England. And as much as I've moaned in the past about taxation and whatever, I can see the benefit of it now and why we have it. And I know that if I was living in Botswana or Cambodia or Bolivia or lots of other places that end in the, I know that I would be suffering greatly. And I know, for example, that there are people living in those places and places like that that are going through the situation I'm going through, having suffered a brain injury. And I'm so sad about what they're having to go through with the lack of support in those places. I'm so grateful to be living in England, and as much as I might have moaned in the past about the rates of taxation, I fully understand now why it's so beneficial and why it's in place. And I could be in any number of places and having an awful life in places with low taxation and low administration, if you like. I used to believe that freedom of that sort would be very beneficial. My situation now means that I appreciate fully why we have the restrictions that we have and why it costs so much to live in England. It really does make sense to me now. And I think you should realise that too, if you've been bothering to listen to this or watch this over time. You should realise what you have and how it could be if you lost it. I know, for example, that I never thought about losing my physical abilities or losing my memory, as I have almost totally. It's a very strange thing to imagine or think about. But even if it's not as extreme as losing your memory or being partially disabled, you should consider what you have in life and understand how great it is, the things that you have that are working properly. And now those things can be removed. You can have an accident, there could be some unfortunate incident that could lead to a loss of something very important, your physical abilities or your mental capacity. as I say, I'm trying to cope with some physical disability, which has improved from where it was. I was in a wheelchair at one point, but now I'm using a stick to move around. So it is very difficult to move around, but at least I can do it, and I'm trying to appreciate that and realize that it has been worse before, and it could be worse again. So I'm enjoying what I have now much more than I did before. And I think that's what I want to communicate to you. You should try and enjoy what you have, even if it seems limited and insignificant. Because if you lose those things, you realize they're not insignificant at all. They mean a great deal. Your ability to walk freely, for example, your ability to remember things freely without thought. You remember things. I don't, for example, remember where I actually used to live. I have addresses in my head, but I don't actually know which address I lived at when I got injured. I don't know the situation. I remember that I have two children, but I don't remember what they look like, and I don't remember them as people. I had a wife, I have an ex-wife now. I don't know what led to that situation. So it's an extremely strange existence to be just living in the moment. So I have an ex-wife, I don't know how she became an ex-wife. I don't know where I live. I know what I did for a living, but I don't actually remember the details of the work. It's an extremely strange existence. I'm so glad to be supported in supported living, I think it's called. I think it's in West London. So this is just to say, try and appreciate what you have that's working well, even if you might not have considered it before. Your ability to walk freely, your ability to remember things, to know where you live, to be able to function basically and do what you used to do. All these things are very valuable, but they're the kind of things you might never think about. You never think about remembering things or walking freely. You simply doesn't cross your mind generally. But try and appreciate what you have, and hopefully you'll be happier as a result.